Hi everybody, it's Noreen. I'm so excited to be back talking to you today on the Love Notions video channel. Today we're going to be talking about sleeves. The last time we were together we talked about sewing perfect V-necks, and today I'm hoping that I can help you sew some perfect sleeves as well. Today we're going to be working on our sleeves on a Breckenridge Henley. It's one of a great t-shirt pattern from Love Notions. It has this really fun neckline. That's actually not as hard as it might look to put in. It's got several different sleeve views, nice, easy, relaxed fit. I love this shirt. Even though we're going to be cutting out and sewing a Breckenridge Henley today, the tips and tricks that I'm going to give you will go across the board to all different kinds of garments. We're focusing on knits today and working on not stretching them and all that kind of thing, but the method of how I'm going to show you how I sew in from the sides to the inside will work for all garments. So whether you're sewing a laundry day tee or a classic tee or a Breckenridge Henley, this is going to work for you. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the anatomy of the sleeve. Whether they're woven or knit, and we are focusing on knit sleeves today, it's basically the same idea, right? You have this lovely shape of the sleeve and the head of the sleeve. This is what goes around our arm and fits to our shoulders. It has a back, the front, and the shoulder seam. Love Notions uses a kind of a code to mark these for you. You'll always know which is which. 2 T's for the back, 1 T for the front, and this little triangular part is the shoulder. I've actually gone onto my pattern after I've printed it and assembled it, and I've marked these with a Sharpie marker just so that they're easy to see. Sometimes when they print, they're really light gray, and so I just highlight them with that. The other thing you're going to see that I did is I took the grain line and I laid a big ruler on there, and I used my marker and I drew through the whole grain line, almost the entire length of the sleeve, and that's so that we can make sure we get it properly aligned on the fabric, because that's really important. A lot of times some of the things that we see people get, they say they get points at the top of their shoulder a lot, and we get twisting in the arms a lot, and sometimes that might be because of how our body is. Maybe we have a broad shoulder or a sloping shoulder. Maybe our arms, especially if your shoulder is forward and you haven't adjusted the sleeve pattern to come forward as well, it's going to twist here in the sleeve. We're not going to really talk about those fitting issues today, just how to get it in properly, so that you know if once you've tried your garment on after you've sewed it in and you have those things, it's not going to be because you sewed it in incorrectly. And one of those things that causes the twist in your arms, the sleeves of your shirt, dress, your garment, one of the things that causes those twists is when we sew it off grain. The other thing is often happens, and I've done it before, is we get them backwards in as we sew them in. We don't get the fronts to the fronts and the back to the back. That's why it's really important for us to not only mark these marks here on the sleeve, but to notice that those same markings are on the pattern on the body of the garment too. This is the back, and you can see those same double T's, and I've highlighted those as well to make sure that I remind myself to mark those. Okay, so now that we know that where all our markings are, let's go cut out our sleeve. One of the things that's really important with our sleeves is to make sure that we cut them on the grain. And that's one of the reasons why I draw through this grain line into a bigger thing, and I'm going to show you why. The grain always runs parallel to the selvage edge of your fabric. And so I often will take and just kind of look and see if I've folded my fabric straight. This is not straight. So I'll pull it up a little bit. Now with knits, they like to shift. So I actually have the extra fabric hanging off the edge of my table, but it's actually piled into a chair, so there's no stretch pulling it down. I want to make sure that I'm not stretching it in any way if that's possible. There we go. This is going to come up just a little bit more. But you'll just go down and check all the way down and make sure that you're straight. Then once you have your fabric straight, now it's time to make sure that our sleeve is cut straight. So now we put our pattern on here, and I'm going to put my ruler down, get a place that matches down here on the fold of the fabric, and now I can see where my grain on my pattern is not in straight line with my fabric. So I could just pivot this pattern piece underneath my ruler until I get it straight. I'm gonna grab some of my pattern weights and start putting that down before I take this off. And then I'll grab the rest and put them on there. Now we're gonna cut it out. I think one of the things I'd also like to tell you is to make sure that you're being extra cautious not to stretch this fabric in any way. Again, that will distort our sleeves too. All right, I've gone ahead and cut my sleeve out, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I am not going to pick the sleeve up. I'm going to leave it exactly like it is. I'm actually going to pick up the fabric from around the sleeve so that the sleeve is exactly in the same position it was. It hasn't moved. Nothing's gotten a chance to get stretched out or anything yet. And then I'm going to take my scissors, and this is what I'm going to use to mark my notches. You can use anything you like. You can use chalk, pins, a disappearing marker. I snip with scissors. So I'm just going to come here. Remember, there's a seam allowance here, so I certainly don't want to snip through my seam allowance. I just take little snips. Make sure I get these doubles because I want to make sure I remember which is the back, because it's really important, the back of the sleeve and the front of the sleeve. If we get those turned around, then our sleeves also won't fit well. All right, we are good to go. All right, what I've done is I've sewn the shoulder seams, and then I've laid it out with the body of my shirt flat and right sides up. And I can see those marks that I made the same. These match what we did on the sleeve. So on your front and back pattern piece, they also have these markings. So here's the single mark for the front and the double mark for the back. And so I'm going to take my sleeve and right sides together, making sure that I've got the front, or this single notch, marked up with this front. I'm going to put the sleeve head right up here where this notch is with my shoulder seam. Then I'm just going to come around here to the back. Put this at the underarm. I know you're thinking, at least I did. So this is a convex circle and this is a concave circle, and you're like, well, how in the world are these going to fit together? But trust me, they will. And we're going to clip over here on the front. All right, so now we have clipped these 3 points of these 3 markings that they gave us on our pattern. Now the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to pick this up. I guess this is a great time for me, since I had to kind of pick it up. This is a great time for me to reiterate or to tell you that to just always be careful you're not stretching anything. I think that's super important. So I have actually, the weight of this fabric will pull it and twist it. So even while I'm sewing it, while I'm pinning it, I'm always making sure that I have it resting on something, so none of the weight is pulling it. So I'm going to match up the marks I've got here. There's my front mark. And then I'm going to go around over here, slide this out. I'm going to mark these notches up over here. Now see, if I were, it's so easy, I don't know, hopefully you can see this. It is so easy to like pull and stretch this, either the one side or the other. So you just have to be really, there's my little clips right there. You just have to be really careful to put those together. And just, yeah, make sure you're just gentle with that, handling that fabric there. Oops, got a little fold to fix that. All right. I'm gonna make sure that I'm just easing these in super gently in this point. So I'm gonna put a clip here. Same over here. think the other thing to notice here is you're going to have a little bit that sticks out. Is that possible for you to see? That sticks out over here? That's where the seam sews. So when these shouldn't match exactly, because when you sew right here, that'll take that up in the seam, and then this area here will be flat. So if you've ever wondered why that isn't flat right there, that's probably why. All right, now here we go. I think a lot of times, a lot of issues come with the sleeves is because we're sewing them in, we're just starting here to pin them, and we're just pinning across. And I don't think that works well. I think 9 times out of 10, you come out with extra fabric one way or another. This way keeps us always working within the parameters of the sleeve. So here we are. You can see here, we're all pinning flat, this concave and this convex curve that we've got going, and we've got to fit these two things together, and I promise you they're going to fit perfectly together. No stretching required. So here's how I do it. I take my index fingers and I stick it inside this little hole that I've made, this little gap, and I've got this piece. Now I can pinch the sleeve, so that's the sleeve. I can pinch the sleeve with my thumb and forefinger. Then I can also pinch the back with my forefinger and my middle finger. So basically what I'm going to do is using my forefingers as a kind of a steady thing, so I can kind of shake this and just pop that right in there. And see how it fits? It just fits right in there. I'm being careful again not to stretch it. It should just set right in there. And you can actually see just a little bit of the ease, but it's just right in the seam line. It's going to be perfectly fine. See? Just get that little shake. You should never have to stretch this. See how that just fits in really nicely? You should never have to stretch this. If you have to stretch this, then there's something wrong. Something's wrong with your pattern, with your fabric not being cut correctly, because remember we cut it on the grain line and how it was designed so that it has the proper stretch in the proper places for what it needs. Okay, so here we go again on this side. Fingers in, relaxing the fabric, giving it a little shake, and letting that just fall right in there. Give it a clip. Another clip. See that? And you look at this, for 1 second you think, well, that's too big, but it's not. When you push your fingers on here, because remember, it's curving this way. It's perfect. This is the reason it's really important to keep the sleeve on the top. You need to keep that edge on the top so that you're smoothing it into the other edge. And we're going to sew it the exact same way. We have to make sure that we're sewing it with the sleeve on the top so that we're easing that fabric into the hole where it belongs. All right, let's sew it in. This might give you a better view of that little bit extra that I was talking about. So this is the sleeve, and this is the body of the shirt. And you can see just that little bit that's sticking out. When I sew my 3/8 inch seam right here, do you see these are gonna cross and meet? And then that's gonna meet perfectly right there underneath. All right, we're gonna get ready to sew these sleeves in. Got myself lined up on my 3/8 inch seam allowance. I've gone ahead and dropped my needle down. I want to make sure that I'm not stretching this in any way. So I've got, I'm working hard to keep, you can even see it kind of bunch up here a little bit. As long as I don't have any bunching here, I'm okay. I just don't want to be pulling. I don't want any stretch, anything pulling on my fabric. So here we go. I'm just going to keep adjusting this as I go, making sure that my edges are meeting nicely and that I'm not stretching this in any way. Again, we've got sleeve on the top, bodice on the bottom. See how that's just laying in there as we go along? Just laying in there really nice. And there we have it. It's all sewn in nice. Let's take a look at it from the other side. Look at that. See that? That looks great. And now, I'm actually gonna take mine to the serger and I'm gonna go ahead and serge that seam around. The process is exactly the same if you're using a serger or your regular sewing machine. And then we're going to do the one thing that nobody likes to talk about. This is when an actual ironing board comes in really handy. I don't actually iron my clothes on a daily basis, but when I sew, I do take the time to press because it really can make a difference in how our garments look when they're finished. To be fair, if I'm taking all the time to make things that fit, I want it to look really nice. So here, this rounded end of my ironing board is perfect for making sure we've pressed our sleeve in well. Again, I want to make sure that I'm not stretching this fabric in any way, so I've actually put a chair down underneath here and it's holding up the weight of the shirt. But as you can see, we've got, doesn't this look nice? I mean, just looking at it here on the wrong side looks great. So I'm just going to take my iron and just go around here and press this really great. Just press it nicely. Get it nice and put it in, shift it a little bit over here. Press it this way, all the way through. And let's flip it over and see what we got. And when I flip it this way, now we can see how this is laying right here. How I got that nice and smooth. If you want to, you can reach in there and kind of pull that seam towards the sleeve head itself. But I don't often fuss with it that much. I just put it on here and then get right up here on the shoulder. I think this is probably the most critical place to iron. I even hit that with a nice burst of steam. And you can see this is really nice and flat. There's no pointy things that stick up. I wasn't pushing anything really hard down. Yeah, I think that just, it's beautiful. I like making, it's like art. Okay, here we are. Here's the Breckenridge we just put together. All done. Got my sleeves in. Let's take a look at them, see how we did. See how there's no points here, no bunching, how they fit so nicely. Now I will say a couple of things. If you are getting some pointy here, it might be because they're not fitting on your body right. Remember, your shoulder should be coming right here. Like if you take your finger and put it here and lift your arm up, you can feel that little place where your arm bends. That's where your seam ideally should be sitting, depending. If it's a particular pattern design that's like a drop shoulder or something, of course that's going to be different. But this isn't, this is just right there. Most cases that's what it's going to be. If you might look at mine and think it's twisting, it's actually not. My sleeves are too long in this rayon spandex, so if I pulled this to where my sleeves are right, see? And that's because we cut on the grain and made sure we were cutting it out correctly. If I can leave you with anything, it's this. Make sure that you've cut your pattern on the grain. Make sure that you have marked all your notches correctly and you've matched them up so you're getting your front and your back, that you're not stretching it in any way, shape, or form when you're pinning it together. Make sure that you're pinning or clipping from the outside to the inside, and that when you sew it, you're keeping your fabric lifted up so that there's no stretch. You don't ever want to stretch anything. If you feel like you have to stretch it, then yeah, I think something is wrong there. What was the last thing? Make sure that you always sew with the sleeve up, and you're pinning that way too, with the sleeves on the top, the body of the garment on the bottom. I hope this has given you some confidence to go and sew in some really great sleeves. See you next time.